Welcome to the Legal Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jolene, and with the Legal Learning Center, I help prospective law students save time, money, and stress on their legal journey. This month, the Pre-Law Survival Guide, a book by the Legal Learning Center by yours truly, is available on Amazon. So go ahead and check it out. This is a book to help US and Canadian pre-law students consider whether law school is right for them, what they should be doing. Do they need help? And if so, where to get it? How to, again, save time, money, and stress on their legal journey. This is the type of book that you will be referencing for years. And even if you're in law school, there is plenty to help you out. So go ahead, go on over to Amazon and check it out, and it will be linked up in the show notes as well. Now, today we are joined by Elena Deutsch. Elena helps women leave big law. Now, I know you might think, why do I even need to hear this if I am still looking to join law? It's really good to know what's on the other end so that you can try to avoid some of the pitfalls. Some of the strategies and tips that Elena shares are things that you should really be doing before you ever go to law school. And that includes if you are male. So do not worry because you are a male interested in going into law. There is plenty for you here. Just take this information and use it now so that maybe you don't need to use it later. But if you do, Elena's there for you.
Jolene, thanks so much for having me. My name is Elena Deutsch. I'm the founder of WILL, W-I-L-L, and that stands for Women Interested in Leaving. And then the word big is in parentheses in a lowercase b, big law. But it's really women interested in leaving law because I help women lawyers of all kinds, in-house, government. They've already left the law, but I help them figure out what it is they really want to do with their careers and lives. Because I stand for the power of women lawyers who want to have a big impact on the world and free themselves from the burden of loans or the billable hour so that they can do work in the world that feels meaningful and fulfilling.
Yes. And I know students might be wondering, why am I having you on? But you have a very unique story. And I also, they need to hear some of these things like, why do we get burnt out? Why would we want to leave law? And you hit on a lot of things that just even something like the billable hour, where it's just like, you feel like your life is literally in like these 6-minute increments. And it can get really tiring, even if you are pretty happy with your job. So,
yeah.
All right. Yeah. So why don't you go back and tell us about your legal journey?
Yeah, my legal journey is starts with my dad. And when I was a little kid, my dad was a criminal defense attorney, and he would come home and we would play mock trial around the dinner table. And he had a small private practice in New York City, me with a couple of his friends, one flight up. And I loved it. I loved playing the prosecutor. I loved playing the defense attorney. I loved playing the judge and the jury. So we would each take a turn. And I would go into his office and help him and go down to court with him. I found it all very like exciting and romantic. And my dad was good at like the closing arguments, and I thought it was all very dramatic. Until I was 14, and one night he didn't come home. And my dad had been arrested for embezzling money from a client. And fortunately, he did not go to prison, but he was disbarred. And he was pretty disgraced. He didn't ever really fully recover. I had big second thoughts about going to law school then. And then when I was a senior in college, he actually developed a brain tumor and was, really couldn't make it to my graduation. And that really solidified it for me that I was not ever going to go to law school. And so I had to figure out what else I wanted to do and who else I wanted to be upon graduation.
Wow, that is such a dramatic story. And I think it's probably the most dramatic one I've heard. But what I have heard from people is, something happens to them where they can't quite go to law school. And so delaying or not going made such a great change in their lives. And not that law school can't also make a great change in your life,
Sure.
but that for a lot of people, this little side road has opened up a lot of different doors and opportunities for them. So what did you end up doing?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a lot older than your listeners. I'm in my mid 50s. So this is back pre-internet, and I started right after college volunteering for a women's organization. And through there, they had some like resources and kind of referral guides. And I was looking through those, and then I found some more organizations that interested me. And I just started sending my resume and applying. But I start with my interests, right? So like I think this is something that I help women lawyers now do when they're in their late 20s and their 30s and their 40s and their 50s, because they never took time to figure out, wait a minute, what am I really interested in that I could apply my amazing intellect and my passion and my energy towards. So I worked in like human sexuality and HIV and AIDS. This was, excuse me, in the early 90s during the AIDS crisis. And I worked on issues and with people, with teenagers and doing training for other professionals. And so I figured out what I was good at also. So I'm really good at training. I don't call it really teaching. It's really being like a facilitator. So I got really good at training, and then I ended up going to public health school, and I got a master's degree in public health.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, I think what you're saying is correct, that we need some training if we are to shift gears, because it is a whole new big scary world out there. And I think we've been so trained with law school, right? It's so intense training to do this thing that we feel like we can't do anything else, or that we would need training for it. And
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of attorneys actually do have side hustles. They have like little second careers, which is kind of crazy considering how many hours we work. But I think a lot of that is that we're finding that second interest, and we just one, are a little afraid to leave law, I think. And then two, we don't have the training, right? Even that little side hustle isn't really, we're not being trained. So we're used to being trained. So we're just scared to make that leap.
Right. And when I hear you saying trained, what I'm hearing is like schooled. Like I hear what I'm sort of reading between the lines is that you're saying like we need like official training and like going to school for something.
That's how we tend to feel.
Right. And like the women I serve are like probably like your listeners. They're smart, they're ambitious, they want to do good work in the world. They want to have an impact. They want to feel fulfilled and that their work is meaningful. And so when you're a smart, and whether it's men, women, non-binary people, whatever, it's because I focus on women, but when you're a smart girl and smart woman, you've done great in school, like going to law school feels like a logical next step. And what happens is that the actual practice of law for most of the people I work with is so vastly different than school that all the skills and training and things that made you a great student because you love to learn and you love to do research and dive deep into something, those are not prized and valued in law firm life.
Yeah, it's definitely true. People would always say your cases are so unique. And it's like, okay, I get assigned cases the same as you do. So probably your cases are just as unique. You just don't see it because you're not diving deep. But it's in some ways I was rewarded, but not exactly, because it was kind of on my own time, right? Like, I mean, I'm working extra hard to find these little things that are going to help my case versus most of us really just didn't have time. So you're just kind of almost top sheeting a case. You're just going through it as fast as you can. What are the issues? How can I settle? How can I get out of this case and move on to the next case? Because there's another one coming down the pike. And so, yeah, I mean, I got a little rewarded for it, but really it was like, can I have like 20 less cases? In my industry, we had like 85 to 100. So
wow,
I have like 20 cases less so that I can do this deep dive. And Of course, the answer is no, because there's more coming.
There's more
So,
coming. Yeah.
yeah,
And that probably, right. And that probably scratched your itch, Jolene, right? Like that satisfied you to find that one little interesting tidbit that your hook, right? And here you are now, a storyteller through podcasts and other medium, right?
Right.
But that was one of your special things. So, and I'm sharing this because like I really want your listeners to like know more about who they are and what lights them up and what's their special thing, so that they can find that, whether it's in law or in something else. And as I said
how
to
do
you
you help them do that? Because like I said, it's all about, for us, education, right? So it feels like anything outside of traditional school is so scary.
Yeah. And that's okay. Like let's just take a moment and normalize that. And like, that's okay. We grew up in this educational system that kept us on tracks. Right. And this whole lockstep, you know what's coming. There's comfort in it. There's security. You don't have to think too hard. You don't have to look too far afield. And let's just like normalize. It's okay to want those things. And like, do you want where it's taking you? Like, go down the road, as you said before we started recording, interview some people, interview some lawyers doing international or immigration. Like, go talk to them. Would you want to be living that life in 10 years time? Right? Like, so that's one thing. That's a way to investigate your interests. Because traditional school might feel safe now, but when you feel stuck and trapped, it doesn't feel so safe. And then it's harder to get out. So that's one thing. And in terms of finding like what makes you tick and lights you up, I do use some assessments with clients, right? So, and anyone who's never done their Strengths Finder assessment, the Gallup Clifton Strengths, it's called Clifton Strengths. They changed the name, but if you Google Strengths Finder, and I'm sure you can link to it in the show notes, like I highly recommend, because it points out your top 5 natural gifts and talents. And not like the bottom of the list, the things that we'll never really go from good to great to zone of genius in. But these are things like, one of mine is ideation, right? I love coming up with new ideas. It's super easy and fun for me. So what are things that are easy and fun for you? And those are probably your top 5 strengths. And you really want those as the bedrock of what you are doing and how you are working.
That's good to know. I did take that recently. I can't remember. I have to go back and look at my strengths, what they are. I know I'm doing some of them at least, but yes, I love those types of tests, because it really does uncover, am I on the right path, or how can I make this path, twist it a little bit so that it does work better with my natural talents and, what I'm all about.
Totally. Yeah. Why, life and work is hard enough. Like, why not play to our strengths?
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. And just for example, I've worked with many women who have harmony and empathy in their top 5, right? And relator. And so no wonder they're having a hard time in litigation, right? They hate being in an adversarial, confrontational environment.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense why this is not a good fit for me. So it's really about understanding yourself better so that you can find the right fit. Again, whether it's in law or in something else.
So what are some reasons that you've seen typically that people really want to leave law?
Ooh, the reasons that people want to leave law who come to work with me is that they, so my business is called Interested in Leaving Law. And I think that's one of the things that appeals to a lot of people, because they're not sure that they want to leave law yet, many of them.
Yeah.
And so, but the reasons that they want to at least start investigating what else they could do is because they feel very stuck. They don't believe that they know their transferable skills or what else they could do. They feel the work is not meaningful or aligned with them. And you mentioned immigration the other day, and actually, I spoke with a woman the other day who's doing immigration for a large firm. So it's mostly like corporate clients, right? Not the immigrant who's trying to stay in the country with their children.
Yes.
Right. And families. And so, and And for her, clients are calling her nonstop. She gets 200 emails a day, and she's an inbox zero kind of person. And she is just, there's no way to keep up. And now she has a toddler, and she'd like to spend time with her child and husband and family, and without constantly worrying about work, having her phone ringing with clients demanding what's happening with their case, when there's only so much you can do. So it's just one example, and there are dozens and dozens of just taking your laptop always everywhere, out for dinner, on vacation, never being able to unplug, and the anxiety that breeds when you don't get a good night's sleep because you're worried about, did you italicize the comma? It's just like these really, really insane, to me as an outsider, insane things.
Yeah.
And then I can be like someone who's outside of that world and be like, hey, the rest of the world doesn't function like that. Come on. It's okay. It's really, you'll be fine out here. Truly.
Yeah. It's so true. And I don't know if law students really understand the extent that people do take their laptops everywhere, and their phones and whatever. But I had a case I had transferred to a coworker, and he went on vacation, and he was supposed to prepare a memo for the upcoming hearing that was going to take place while he was gone. And he didn't. And so somebody else was going to take that hearing, but he knew nothing. And it was a super complex, like super old case. So I said, you know what? I can figure out what's going on a lot easier. It was my case a few years ago. I'll go through it. So I was prepping this memo for this guy and sent it out. And then the guy on vacation messages me. And he's like, hey, thanks for doing that. I was running behind. I was going to do it. And I'm like, wait, aren't you still on vacation? Yes. Where are you? Thailand. Why aren't you enjoying your vacation? Oh, my wife's not up yet. I'm just doing some work. I'm like, you took your laptop to Thailand?
To Thailand.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Like, put it down.
Put it down, close it, right? But you had to step in. And like you said, it was even a few years old and you stepped in.
Yeah.
And there's one client who she went to Peru for 4 days. She's like, it was the best 4 days since I started being a lawyer, because there was no way they could reach me. Like, when you have to go so far away in the world that you're really, really, truly unreachable as a way to unplug, that's why people reach out to me, right? Like, they're like, this is crazy. This is not the life I want to be living.
Yeah.
And again, for law students or people, if you're thinking about law school, like, really, do you want a job where the expectation, the cultural norm is that you work nights and weekends and vacations?
Yeah.
Do you want that?
Now,
trust me, there's a lot of other things you can do in the world. It's not as clear of a path, yes, and there's tons of stuff.
And you can still help people and all that good stuff.
You can probably help more people. You can probably be more helpful to more people.
Yes.
Right?
I think what I've found, and I don't know if this is true for you, but a lot of people go into law school wanting to help people, but because of their debt, they get stuck taking a higher paying job that doesn't necessarily help people. At least, I think most law jobs do kind of help people in some way, but you're helping maybe businesses instead of, the poor person or whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I hear that all the time. So they went into law to do good work in the world because it was intellectually challenging. They wanted to be around smart people. And then they got sucked into a big law firm with a bigger paycheck so they could pay down the big debt. And then they feel stuck. And it can often get even more and more pigeonholing as you go further in a big firm. And then you feel even less like you've got transferable skills and anything to offer the rest of the world, which you still do, by the way. But it is very, very much the case. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I do try to help people avoid the debt, but
yes,
if that's not possible,
if
it's too late, how can they escape these nice paying jobs and work just, for a nonprofit or, as a non-attorney or, all these non-attorney jobs where they are doing their passion?
Yeah, it's great. Great question. So first it starts with like I said, really knowing who you are and what you have to offer. So I take people through a process I call ease, and you can do it right now, even if you're not a lawyer. It works for everyone. It's what are the elements that you want present in your work and in your life? So those are the things like I was talking about before. What do you find easy and fun when you get in a state of flow? What's what kinds of tasks are you doing? What would you love to do all day, every day and if you weren't getting paid, you would be happy to do it. So those are the kinds of things to explore and get really clear on. And then create a list of what are some appealing new possibilities. So this is what we take clients through in Will. So I have me and my coaches, we coach people. So we do some brainstorming together. And let's say you love to do research, you're methodical, you're great project manager, you love the beauty industry, right? So maybe you'd be really interested in market research in the beauty space, right? So we brainstorm appealing new possibilities. Then you prioritize those, and then you go out there and have those informational conversations with people in that industry to see what is it really like? What's a typical day like? How much do you get paid? What's the travel requirement? If you don't like to travel, you don't want to take a job where you're traveling 20, 30, 40% time.
Yeah.
Those are the things you get clear on in the elements, and then you check out in that study research phase. And then finally, you engage in consistent action, and you talk to people, you work on your own mindset and your own beliefs. And this is something we do a lot in Will, is believing like I can do something other than be a lawyer. I am smart and capable. There's a lot out there for me. So we work on mindset in a whole bunch of different ways.
Yeah, that's super important because I think we've been told we're good at this one thing. And especially in law, you go into one area and you do get pigeonholed. You get kind of stuck. You might have a chance to jump into a different area maybe a few years in, but then you're kind of stuck. Unless you want to take a big pay cut, but most of us are like, oh, we can't do that. So we get stuck, and then we feel like that's our only talent. That's our only field, and we're good for like nothing else.
Well, right. And that's the fear. That's the belief. And so we work on those beliefs, right? That like the belief that you have to take a big pay cut. Do you know that for sure? Right? Do you 100% know that for sure? Like, so get out there and do some of the research. Do you need as much money to live on as you think you do? And I know there's all sorts of wonderful coaches out there who help lawyers, help people figure out how to pay down their debt and make a career transition. There's all this either or thinking in the legal mind. You're trained to think that way. And so what I love to help people do, and if there's one takeaway anyone gets from this, is like, it's not always either or. There's both, and there's usually lots more options. There's on the other side of that. And so I hear those stories, right? I'm pigeonholed. I don't know how to do anything else. I'd have to take a big pay cut. And when you think those thoughts, Jolene, how does it feel?
Yeah, it's just like even my heart clenches, it's very restricting, but you believe it because you do believe, well, I've had so many little pay raises that I can't possibly just laterally move. I can't, monetarily, that I have to take a big pay cut because I've been told even in the legal industry that if I change areas of law, I'm going to be taking a big pay cut. And so if I was especially to leave law, it'd be even worse, right?
Right. Well, that's the belief. That's the story. Is that true or not? And I think lawyers think I'm going to take a big pay cut. It's going to go from whatever it is, $200,000 to zero or 30,000, right? Is like a number people have in their head. It's like, well, is that true? Like, actually, if you take another job, you'll probably get paid pretty well because you are a lawyer. That's going to bump you up. So before you make all those assumptions and in your brain rule out the possibilities, I mean, it was very touching when you just said, like, I felt a clench in my heart. It felt restrictive.
Yeah.
Right. So if it feels restrictive and it feels scary, you're not going to take any action. Right. And then what results would you get?
Yeah. And it's funny because I love your system, because I definitely a handful of years ago, like 2017, I love Halloween. That's my thing. And so I just decided, you know what? I've lost Halloween. Like, yes, I dress up and stuff, but I don't spend enough time doing it.
Yeah.
And so in 2018, I applied to work at one of the local hayrides. And I was just like, okay, it's going to be like $13 an hour, but I'm just going to work on Friday and Saturday nights. They're busy nights, and that's it. And I'm just going to see. I'm just going to see what's here. I mean, I'll
I
meet the
love it.
people. Yeah, see how they run it. What are they doing? Hey, I get free passes. Yay. That kind of thing. But it was so much fun. I learned so much. It was great. I was invited back in 2019. I actually couldn't do it in 2019, but and then of course 2020, forget it. Right. So,
Right.
but it was I just had such a great time. And it turned out they put me in the ticket booth, which at first I thought, well, I'm not out there, right, with the people. But actually they ran the business from the ticket booth. So I learned how they ran the business.
I love it.
And everybody in the ticket booth had a college degree. And I was just like, wow, like one girl was an accountant and another girl she worked for the studios, but she had, again, they all had their college degree. So we all had very nice, intelligent conversations. So I still was surrounded by people, with an education that were nice to talk to. And
that's great.
Yeah, it was such a fabulous experience. So,
and what else did it give you in terms of like just scratching that itch of like, I love Halloween? Like, what did it give you? I'm curious.
Yeah, it also gave me that exposure to people who have an interest, because everyone who had applied there had that interest too. It wasn't just, I need a part-time job, right? So just knowing there's a community out there, like me, that has this love of, Halloween. And, when I had applied, I think I had just puked all over the interviewer how much I just wanted to get back into the Halloween vibe, and she had actually undergone a huge career transition. She had gone from accounting to PR and stuff like that. So
yeah,
she was like, I'll just make sure you know everything I'm doing and how I'm running it and
great,
all that. And so it was really great. So she and I are still friends.
nice.
And yeah, it would just really was neat to see, I don't want to do what she was doing. I don't want to run it. Obviously I don't want to live my life in a ticket booth, but at the same time, just knowing how the haunts are kind of run was, I don't know, it just checked off a big checklist on my bucket list that I didn't know I had.
Yeah, there's so much in that story that's, I think, really worth pausing on for a moment and highlighting. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
And I'm a little bit coachy here, but I'm a coach. So but it's like, look, you have this interest in Halloween, right? And someone might dismiss that as frivolous or whatever, but like, hello, Halloween is a multi-billion-dollar a year industry, like just this holiday, right? From the pop-up shops to this stuff to the like a bajillion things, right?
Yeah.
So you followed an interest, and then you developed and like you were genuine in your interview. You just like you said, you puked all over, right? So you framed it sort of negatively, but like you just were enthusiastic. And they put you in front of people because they knew your love of Halloween was going to shine through, and people would be welcomed like from the moment they bought their ticket to the end of the ride, and you were going to kick off that experience for them. And then you got a business mentor and a friend in the process of you being genuinely just forthright about who you are and what you're interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say what you were saying about transferable skills is absolutely true. Now, I froze when it was time to use my transferable skills, but I did learn a very good lesson because, they say failure is the best lesson or whatever. But somebody had come up to the ticket booth, because it really is the only office, with a complaint, right? That, the scare actor did this thing to my daughter, and it was this whole dramatic thing. And of course, I'm like, I don't know how to handle this. So the head person handled it, but what she was doing was deposing the person. It was crazy. I was like, I could do that. That's a depo. She was just like, what time? Which actor? What did he look like? Where were you? I mean, just all the questions. And I was like, I could have done that. Yeah. And it was clear this person was totally lying to get free tickets, but it was just like, wow. And then of course, I've handled lots of liars in my depots, and, so I could think as she was talking, how would I handle somebody lying to get free tickets and all this kind of stuff. Right. And it was such a amazing experience to see somebody with those depot skills that's not an attorney,
Right. And it's really just interviewing someone. It's asking questions. It's being curious. It's so it's and that's I think one of the things, like for people who are struggling with, well, what other skills do I have? Like, take what you're good at, what you'd like to do, and just break it down into like, what are steps. If I was explaining this to a fifth grader, like if you said that's a depot, a fifth grader wouldn't know what that is, right?
Yeah.
If you're like, I ask specific questions, I'm getting as much information, I'm asking some open-ended questions, some closed-ended questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun to learn. And yeah, like you said, I never thought of myself as having transferable skills as an attorney, but when I saw that, I just thought, wow, it's so interesting.
Yeah, for sure. You've got way more transferable skills. And it's even like, go back to the things that you love to do in high school or college, or what did you volunteer for in college? Those are going to point you to some of your interests and where some of those transferable skills also live.
So now, as far as transferring with in-law, what type of transitions do you tend to see, and how does that work?
Yeah, so will members, many of them continue to stay in the law, but many of them, I'd say about 60%, 50 to 60%, continue to practice in their next role, also in something legal. They'll often go from a big firm to a smaller firm with much, much less billable hour requirements, with really truly a better work-life balance. Most people don't want to go big firm to big firm because it's really, they see it as pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
But many of them are starting their own businesses. And even if they go to another firm for like a first step, then they'll start taking classes in something. So it might not be going back fully to school for another whole, becoming a social worker or a therapist, or, so one person is considering getting an MBA, but she doesn't even really need it. I think she's still a little bit in the mentality of like, I need more training.
Yeah.
But like, one person's working in real estate. One person got a job at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Someone is a Montessori school preschool teacher now, and she was a 32-year equity partner.
Wow.
Right. So someone wants to own her own, someone bought a llama. Not a llama, an alpaca. Oh, excuse me. Someone bought an alpaca, and she's actually in LA. So she has it at an alpaca ranch outside of Los Angeles. And she wants to develop a whole sustainable retreat center that's good for the land, good for the alpacas, good for the people who come there and the people who work there. Wow. Someone is becoming a forest therapy nature guide. Two people actually are doing that. It's hard for me to say what people go to, because it's so unique. It's as unique as the individual.
Wow. That's a forest therapy nature guide. And alpaca owner. It's amazing.
Right. But it's not like she's not starting by, she was a first year associate when she started working with me. So it's not like she has a retreat center yet, but she's working towards that. And she's starting with one alpaca who's pregnant, and then she'll have two. And then it's going to grow over time. And she's taking classes again. And I think, online education was certainly a big business before COVID, but really you can study anything in these micro ways now and get training that's not having to go back to school and really incur more debt.
Yeah. I listened to Tim Ferriss, and I've read one of his books, The 4-Hour Workweek.
The 4-Hour Workweek.
And and he was going to go back to get his MBA. And then he just decided, I think he interviewed some people, and he was just realizing he wasn't going to learn anything practical really through the MBA. Yeah. So he just took a whole bunch of classes, or independent, right? And just learned independently what he needed to do to run a business. And it's like, that's all you really need is, hey, Udemy's out there. There's all kinds of other options out there where you can learn, how to run a business, and
totally
all the different things, all the stuff that we lawyers also don't know, but kind of almost wish we did know about trademark and copyright and some of that stuff that we might need when we run a business. So, You don't have to go to law school for that. You can definitely learn that on Udemy. I'm always searching those Udemy classes. I love learning, and it's amazing what's out there.
I bet learners in your top 5.
Yeah, I can't even remember. I wish I have to go look.
Yeah, go look at it. Learner, I would put money that learners in your top 5, definitely in your top 10. Yeah, if you love learning. And I think, again, that's one of the things that is very common among the people I work with.
Yes. And there was definitely, I know something about, interpersonal talking, something, I don't remember, something that was like, yes, okay, yes, I have a podcast and so forth. So for sure.
Maybe connectedness.
What's that?
Connectedness.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. I'm definitely that meme of what is it? Dear teacher, moving my seat doesn't help. I talk to everyone. That's me. I'm like, that was written for me.
Know yourself. So then you have a podcast and you can talk to everyone. How great is that?
I love it. But okay, so all right, so we can do anything, which is awesome. You've given me so many just broader ideas, because I also try to help the pre-law students see these options.
Yeah.
Because we do feel like we're so tunnel vision, and just, pause, maybe take some gap years. Law school will be there. You can be a, whatever, again, a ticket booth person for a while, and then go to law school. So if people feel like they're just not going to be ambitious enough unless they go to law school or go to higher education, do you have anything to help them bring them off that ledge?
Ambitious enough. What do you mean by that?
I think a lot of pre-law students feel like they need this extra degree so that they can tell people in a word, I'm smart, I'm ambitious, I'm hardworking, and other things like I'm a secretary, right? It doesn't scream I'm brilliant and I'm smart and all that stuff.
So listen, if you want the lawyer identity and label and prestige, great. You can do that, right? And if you want a word that, and it's worth it to you to go to law school, to pay for law school, to have that, have at it. Again, if I help one person through this podcast, just be like, pause, like, wait a minute. Why do I want those things? Right?
Yeah.
Why is that? What does that say about me? What is it I want to tell the world? Right. And maybe you come from an immigrant family and you're the first person in your family to go to college, and you have an opportunity to go to law school and succeed in a classic American way. Those are factors that only you can decide. And it's like, just once you're a lawyer, also, like, no one can take that away from you. You always will be a lawyer, and you can be a lawyer and something else. You can be a lawyer and a podcast host, or you can be a lawyer and a writer, a lawyer and a clown, a lawyer and a forest therapist. I mean, so the client who's becoming a forest therapist, she has her own firm. She does employment law and starting to do forest therapy too. So it's really up to you. I mean, the one thing as an outsider that is a myth I want to bust is that there aren't smart people outside of law firms. And this is where it's like a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. I will totally own that, which is like, well, I want to be around other smart people. And I can just tell you there's smart people everywhere.
Yeah, I think it's hard because in college, we're at that precipice where it's like, do I go to law school? Do I do something else? Right? It's law school or everything else in the world. And law school seems to be this path of one, it's a path, first of all. So that's always nice. Right. But it's also a path to hardworking, again, intelligent, professional people, or at least that's what we think. And the other one is iffy. And first of all, I will say there are plenty of stupid attorneys. I don't know how they become attorneys. Honestly, it's like they have no brain cells. So I'm just going to put that out there. Second of all, there are plenty of unprofessional attorneys out there as well.
Yeah.
There are attorneys who get into fights at the courthouse. I mean, physical fights. It's totally unprofessional. There are screamers and yellers, which is unprofessional as well. There's plenty of the bad side in law as well. And then you go, the other direction, which, okay, yes, at this moment, maybe for you, it doesn't have a path, but there's intelligent people everywhere, as you said. It's just, I feel like some people just want that security of, I'll be around smart, professional people. And I think that there is no technical security in that. Like I said, my experience, not necessarily.
And I'm going to speak to, just if I may for a moment, to the gender dynamic that I see happening in big firms also. And I saw someone posted something about this on LinkedIn recently, and it was like, yes. And I'm just gonna, can I just be kind of brazen and say it? There's a dynamic of like, there's a lot of older men who are partners in firms, and then these like young women who are praised. And yes, there's plenty of young men. Again, I'm just going to speak to women for a moment, if I may, who are praised for their intelligence. There's so much people pleasing that happens, and there's like, it's hard to say no. And it's just, there's like a dynamic of like being the young, up and coming, pretty young thing. And then men ultimately are promoted to partner ahead of women. Women end up opting out because there is this barely under the surface sexism and patriarchy of law firm culture.
Yeah.
And then women end up opting out and then feeling shame and feeling like they couldn't hack it. And that's a lot of what we combat in Will also. But I just want to name that's really present in big law firm culture for many of the women that I serve. I hear stories that make me cringe.
Yes, I will say that one place I worked, there were all kinds of sexist jokes and just comments, and I wasn't very good at playing the game, so I did not last too long, but there were favorites, of the young girls, and it was known for hiring young girls, and they would only hire a guy every so often when this managing attorney kind of almost would get yelled at by coworkers, and then all of a sudden a guy would appear, but then it would be, a slew of girls again. And on the one hand, it was a great culture because you're one of a bunch of young girls. So it's not like you're the only girl in the firm or something, but you kind of knew why you were there, and it's icky. And like I said, I couldn't just smile and laugh like everybody else. I tried, but it didn't work.
Couldn't do it, right? And then, two women I've spoken with in this past week were 8th year associates going up for partner. One, because she had clerked for a year, was technically in her firm a 7th year, but in her career, she was an 8th year, and she didn't get invited to be partner, to apply for partnership. And she asked the managing partner, like, what can I do? I want more information. And she got her ass handed to her. Right. And then all the other women in the firm said, just go kiss the ring. Just go kiss the ring. So like, this is the kind of thing. And now, now she's working with me because she's like, I can't stand this anymore. I don't want to give any more of my life to this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's horrible because that's what happened to me is my 2nd year raise discussion. It wasn't really happening. And yet I had all the professional development. I had the happy clients. I had saved a client, so much money. People were coming in, getting hired, making more than me. And I was like, what? And I had all the logic and the reasoning, and I got kicked out of his office 3 times because he couldn't stand talking to me. And I was like, this is it. I got to go. This is not going to work. And I was happy at that firm in every other way. The other partners adored me, for my actual work, and, and of course, all the girls, we all got along and everything. But I was like, this isn't going to pay my bills in the long run. I need to make more money to pay off my student loans. And this is just a horrendous relationship here. So luckily I only stayed there 2 years, but oh my gosh, people get stuck and they feel like they have to keep going and they want that partnership, so they feel like they have to stay. Otherwise, if they go to another firm, they're derailing their partnership track too.
And that's again, I want to just like point out that's another myth and story. And especially now, legal talent, like hot, right? Like lateraling everywhere, partners lateraling. Like, so it just like you're never stuck unless you think you are.
Yes, I've definitely seen people get hired as a partner at another firm when they were not partner before. And I've seen partners come down to just be a regular, associate at other firms. So you can kind of do what you want. If you want an easier life and you were a partner, it was driving you crazy.
Yeah.
You can come down.
Yeah.
And you can get hired in as a partner. I've seen it. So yeah.
And again, back to like, what do you want your life to look like? Do you want, because I once spoke to a junior partner at a very big firm, and she was sandwiched between the big guys, men, right? And all the associates underneath her. Then she was still the one responsible for everything. And she lost her, like she burst into tears at her daughter's birthday party while carrying the cake. Right? Like, is that like, just what do you want your life to look like?
Yeah. Now, I know you provide lots of helpful content on LinkedIn. What is your handle over there?
It's Elena Deutsch. I think it's just Elena Deutsch.
Okay. And I'll be sure to link it up. Of course.
I do. I love popping into LinkedIn. I get these thoughts. I jump in pretty much every day and just share something I hope is helpful for lawyers and anyone. I mean, we're all trying to live our best lives, right? I am trying to bring my natural gifts and talents and passion to the world. And I just believe there's so much brilliance among women lawyers in particular who are giving it away, often doing work to make, as in their own words, to make banks and insurance companies richer, and it's not satisfying their soul. Yeah. And so if this is resonating for you and you want soul satisfying work, figure it out now, figure it out later. But don't, you have so much to offer the world. The world needs, it's, one of my online teachers, Marie Forleo, says, like, the world needs a special gift that only you have. So let's let it shine, take it out of the firm and into the world.
Yes. Love her. Yes. Great advice. Anywhere else that they should be finding you besides LinkedIn?
My website, womeninterestedinleavinglaw.com.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Julie. And thanks for allowing me to rant there a little bit at the end.
My top takeaways from this chat with Elena. Number 1, a lot of times lawyers are disillusioned with the practice of law because it's nothing like going to school to learn law. So really try to figure out what's on that tail end, because more education is not the same as practicing law. Are you actually going to be happy with that end product? You may remember this from a handful of episodes ago when we had Megan Smiley on the show, but she talked about the Strengths Finders test. So tip number 2 is go take the Strength Finders test. There is a free version. You don't necessarily get the full analysis. You don't get to necessarily keep all your answers, but you get to keep some of it. And it really tells you where your strengths are so that you can play to those strengths. Is there an area of law that plays to those strengths? And if not, should you be looking around at other career fields? And then number 3, know who you are. What do you like? What do you want to see? What works for you? What is easy for you? What do you want in your future? Do the research and then take steps towards that. That's it for this episode. All the tips, links, and so forth will be in the show notes. A full transcript will be available at legallearningscenter.com/WILL. That's Women Interested in Leaving Law. And if you enjoyed the show, if you learned something today, please leave us a review. Go over to iTunes, leave us some stars, leave a note. That just helps the show and it helps more people discover the show. Thanks.